Hello, welcome back. In the previous sections, we learned how to know the basics of A-frame and also add and modify HTML elements in our scene. So in the next series of lectures, we'll be delving into how to modify our virtual environment in terms of the creation of planes and also adding some other materials in our scene. So you can see from here, I have the textures folder. And within the textures folder, I have lots of pictures in here where you can see there is one for floor, which looks like this, and there is another for floor, which also looks like more like a towel. And finally, I have the normal texture, which you also have here, or the normal mat, which is going to help make our floor look more realistic. So in this video, we're going to go through how to create the floor in our A scene. So maybe the floor like the land, or a floor that has tiles that looks more like this in our scene. Tiles that looks more like this in our scene. And as I said earlier, we're going to modify the virtual environment. So let's begin by right-clicking here and creating a new file. This time around, I'm going to call it probably maybe virtual environment. So virtual env. So this series is going to delve into the virtual environments. This time around, let me add the .html to it, so the browser will be able to render it. Of course, in the same way, I need to copy or maybe reference the ascene library, which you already have in here. And I'm going to remove what we have in here. Of course, I will need the asset management system to do some few other things. All right. So let me now include the asset management files that I will need for this particular project. The first one which I'm going to include here is the image, and this time around I'm going to use the location of the image, which is the source, and that is located in the texture folder. That is located in the texture folder, and within the texture folder I have floor, which is the first one. I think it's the first one in here. Let me see. No, it's not this one. I think I would want us to use this floor. Yes, this floor. Of course, the alternate text I said is optional, but the reason for having the ID is to be able to call it anytime in our page without having to type image, source, texture, and all of that to call our files within our object, to wrap around our objects. So I'm going to give it an ID called floor. I think floor would be quite appropriate for this particular one. So now I also said the normal mat helps us, helps our texture look more realistic when light reflects on it. So in our case, the normal mat for our floor is also located somewhere within our page, which is also floor normal mat. It's also in texture floor normal mat, and I'm going to give it an ID called floor normal mat. So an ID called probably floor maybe normal mat. So these two images are the ones I'm going to reference in my asset management system. Of course, that is found within the A scene. So now to create a floor, let me save this object and let me try and preview it over here. At the moment, nothing should really show, but of course we have our VR located at the bottom. So at this point, I want us to create the floor where we can have a material which has this texture, which is the floor, with the normal mat attached to it to make it look more realistic. So if we should create a bare floor or ground, The best primitive to use in this case is going to be an A-plane. And of course, an A-plane looks just like an A-box, but this time around, the depth for the plane, this could be an example of a plane. It's not a box. So the depth for a plane will be very small compared to that of an A-box. This is an example of an A-box. You can see the depth for this, it's quite big compared to that of an A-plane. So we can have the floor coming out this way. So this is a plane where I want us to create. So in that case, let me just comment in here so that those that would want the code later on could follow suit. So in that case, I'm going to create the ground. And as I said, the best primitive to use to create the ground is what we call the A-plane. Of course, the A-plane also takes in some sort of attributes or components, which in this case. So we're going to add the material components to this. And the material components, we can have other properties and values in here. So in this case, I would want us to create the color property and give it a value of probably maybe red. You could type it this way, or if you know the color, the right color combination, the hashtag for red, we could also specify it that way. So probably 00. I'm not so sure. 00. This should be probably red. Now let's see in our plane how this looks like. So I'm going to press S to bring out the objects in the scene. So let me refresh the page. But before then, let me save this one. Refresh the page and let's see if this object is going to display. All right. Oh, okay. In graphics, we have the RGB. So the G is FFF. So that's how come we have this. So R, so this 2 is for R, this 2 is for G, and this 2 is for green. RGB is for blue. So if you want to make it red, so we will have FF00. So in that case, this is red. All right, so we now have a plane. Let me bring it forward so that you see what is happening over here. So you appreciate. All right, so you can see if I should rotate the objects in a way, you could see this is more of a plane. It doesn't really look like. You can see it doesn't look like a box. It's more of a plane. All right, so now let's try and add some other properties to this particular object that we have in here. So we are still not done. Let's add more attributes or properties to this. So assuming we want to find a way to now reference the floor picture that we have in here. This time around, because we added it to the asset management system, we can just reference it by the ID. So I'm going to reference the source, that is SRC. Then this time around, I'm going to reference the ID of the floor, and the ID of the floor is called floor. So once I have this done, we can continue and also reference other stuff. So in this case, let me save this and refresh the page, and let's see what really happens. Okay, so you can see our objects. The objects we have in here is a floor. This time around, we have the color red dominating and also displaying the object itself. So we have this particular plane. All right, so this is our object. We have the plane. We have attached a material to it. Now, of course, the plane or the ground that we have, it's flat. So but what we see over here is not flat. It's more like a wall. It's standing. So we have to find a way to add to rotate this particular floor. So in rotating the floor, we would have to use the components rotation. So in that case, I will just come out of this, this. Then I'll now include the rotation component in here. So I'll say rotation. sorry, rotation. Let me close this so it will be, I will not miss anything. So rotation, this time round, we are going to rotate the object that we have in here 90 degrees. So by default, this is how the plane really looks like. So if you are rotating, we want it to lie down, then we have to rotate it 90 degrees along the x-axis. So in this way, we rotate it this way so that it falls. So by rotation, we have it in x, y, z. So this time round, the x value, we're going to rotate it in by negative 90 anti-clockwise. Then the remaining will all be 0. So let's save this, refresh the page, and this should take effect with our plane lying on the bare floor, as you can see. In fact, let me just close this one, or let me stop and reload it again so that we see the objects one more time. So we have the object more like a plane. It's on the bare floor, as we can see. It is not horizontal. So now let's try and add some few other properties to this particular components. So now in this case, you can see we have our floor in this way. But before that, let's see if we can scale this particular floor. This is quite small by default. You see the size of the floor is small. Let us increase the size of the floor by scaling it up a little using the scale component. And this time around, we are going to scale it to about 10 on the x-axis, 10 on the y-axis, and of course 1 on the z-axis, which is probably going to be the depth of our scene. So I'll refresh the page. I'll come in here again. I'll try to load the objects in here. I'll refresh the page. I would try and load the objects in here, and let's see how it displays. Okay, it's unfortunate it's not really displaying. Let me see if I've not broken any part of the code in here. So let me quickly go in there. I hope I've not broken anything yet. Ooh. Let's see in the VR. Okay. All right, so this is our plane. You can see our plane. It's more of white. Let's see the color we have in here. It's, oh, because of the R we have here, there is a code that is broken. I'm sorry. So we have the objects in here. So let me get it organized well so that you understand or appreciate it better. All right. Okay, so this is the floor. It's been scaled. It's been scaled in a way which is quite okay. But you can see the tiles. We have the tiles in here to be so big. Now let's try and increase the number of repetition of the tiles that is over here, that is displayed on the floor. So to do that, I'll go back again to the material components, and now I would repeat. I'll repeat the objects, the image that we have in the floor, which is this picture. I'll repeat it about, let's say 5 times, 5 by 5 times. So in this case, if I have it saved and I refresh the page, you can see that we now have a floor which is quite big enough with lots of repetitions of the floor in here. It looks quite okay now. Let me try and zoom in so you can see our floor has a good repetition. Now I would want us to change now you can see the bricks that we have, which is the floor that we have over here. The actual color is this. It's more of brown. Let's now change this one from red to probably white so that we can appreciate the actual color that came with this. So I'll save this one, refresh the page again, and let's see. Oh, this is black. So white is FFF 1 2 3 4 5 6. So we have. So this is our floor. You can see this looks a little more realistic compared to the previous reddish one. Now, let's try and add this to it, which is the normal matte. The normal matte makes it look more realistic. So, of course, if you want to add a normal matte to it, now we have to use the property normal map. In this way, of course, we are going to call the floor dot nrm, which is the normal map. So if I save and refresh the page, you can see it looks quite okay, but this time around, let me come here. You can see there is some sort of distortion at some part of the floor, as you can see. So it means because we repeated the floor, let us also repeat the normal map too as well. So we repeat it by saying normal hyphen texture repeat, and of course we're going to repeat it by 5 by 5, just like the other one. So we have it this way. So I'll save it, and now when I refresh the page, it should come out smooth as it should be. So you can see our floor looks more realistic compared to the previous ones that we had, which is quite okay. All right, so this is this is how to create a floor using the plane in our scene. So this is how it is. Now looking at the plane, if I should try and zoom into it with a W, you can see there is some sort of reflection somewhere. From here, you can see there is some sort of reflection over here. And that tells you we have the sun probably located somewhere here and shining on the surface of the floor that we have in here. All right, so we'll talk about lighting in our other series, and I'm sure you would appreciate it. All right, then.